There are two kinds of people who walk into Judge Judy's courtroom. The first kind walks in with the quiet, tired weight of someone who has been wronged. They clutch their papers with both hands. They check the clock. They rehearse their words in the hallway because they have never been to a place like this before, and they are terrified that they will say something wrong, that their truth, after everything, won't be enough. The second kind walks in like they own the place. On a Tuesday morning in downtown Los Angeles, both of those people arrived at exactly the same time. The first was Rosa Delgado, 45 years old, a woman who had spent 15 years mopping marble floors, ironing silk curtains, and raising someone else's children while her own daughter waited at home. She wore her best blouse, the navy one she saved for church, and she carried a manila folder stuffed with papers so carefully organized that every edge was perfectly aligned. She had practiced what she was going to say 9 times the night before. She had not slept. The second was Courtney Hargrove, 24 years old, daughter of Senator Marcus Hargrove of California, the third most powerful man on the Senate Judiciary Committee. She wore a cream-colored Chanel blazer, carried a Hermes bag worth more than Rosa's monthly rent, and arrived 6 minutes late because, as she told her personal assistant while stepping out of a blacked-out SUV, shows like this always start late anyway. She had not practiced anything. She had nothing to practice. As far as Courtney Hargrove was concerned, this was not a courtroom. This was an inconvenience, a Tuesday nuisance, something her father's attorneys should have handled weeks ago, but hadn't, because the amount was too small to bother with, $5,000, and now she had to be here, on camera, dealing with a cleaning woman who thought she deserved something. What she did not know, what no one in that cream-colored blazer ever knows until it is far too late, is that this particular courtroom had a different kind of power in it, and it had a name. It was about to be called to order. The studio audience shuffled into their seats in low murmurs. Cameramen adjusted their angles. The court clerk, a patient man named Gregory who had worked this show for 11 years, arranged the case files in front of the bench with the quiet efficiency of someone who had seen everything. Rosa sat at the plaintiff's table with her hands folded over her manila folder. Her knuckles were slightly pale. Beside her sat a legal aid volunteer named Stephen Park, a 26-year-old law student who had helped her prepare her case pro bono through a community legal clinic. He leaned over and whispered something reassuring. Rosa nodded once, slowly, and looked straight ahead. At the defendant's table, Courtney Hargrove sat sideways in her chair, literally sideways, one arm draped over the back, her body angled away from the proceedings as if the entire setup were something she was only partially participating in. Her phone was in her hand. Her personal aide, a pale, nervous young man named Preston, sat beside her with a leather portfolio he had clearly been told not to open unless instructed. Courtney was texting, not secretly, not under the table, openly, with both thumbs, while the cameras were live. One of the production assistants walked by and quietly informed her that personal devices were not permitted during proceedings. Courtney looked up slowly. She looked at the production assistant the way someone looks at a mosquito before deciding whether it is worth the effort to swat. "Do you know who my father is?" she said. It was not a question. It was a temperature check. The production assistant blinked, said nothing, and walked away. Courtney returned to her phone. Rosa, who had heard every word, did not turn around. She looked at Stephen and pressed her lips together. He gave her a small, steady nod. Then Gregory stood and said the words that silenced every whisper in the room. "All rise. The Honorable Judge Judy Sheindlin presiding." She came through the door the way she always did, without ceremony, without announcement beyond the clerk's call, and with the absolute, unshakable certainty of someone who had been doing this for decades and had never once needed the room to adjust to her. The room adjusted to her. It always did. Judge Judy took her seat, arranged her papers in exactly 3 movements, and looked out at the courtroom with those sharp, clear eyes that had, over the course of a legendary career, seen every variety of human foolishness, denial, deception, and desperation. She looked left. She saw Rosa Delgado, hands folded, eyes forward, posture of someone holding themselves together through sheer determination. She looked right. She saw Courtney Hargrove, still sideways in her chair, phone face down on the table now, but the energy of someone who had only reluctantly put it down. Judge Judy's expression did not change. "Be seated," she said. Everyone sat, everyone except the feeling in the room, which stood very still. Judge Judy opened the case file, scanned it for exactly 14 seconds, the kind of reading that looked fast but missed nothing, and then looked up directly at the defendant's table. "Ms. Hargrove," she said. Courtney tilted her head. Not yes. Not yes, Your Honor. Not even yes, ma'am. Just, The sound of someone who has been mildly interrupted from a more important thought. The courtroom felt it. You could see it ripple through the audience the way a stone ripples still water. Gregory, at his desk, became very interested in his pen. Stephen Park, beside Rosa, went very still. Judge Judy's eyes did not move from Courtney's face. "When you are addressed in this courtroom," Judge Judy said, "you will respond with yes or no. You will sit facing forward, and you will refer to me as Your Honor. Is that understood?" Courtney looked at her. A slow, measuring look. The look of someone calculating whether the person in front of them was worth the full performance. "Sure," she said. Judge Judy held the pause for exactly one breath. "That will be, yes, Your Honor," she said. "We'll try again. Is that understood, Ms. Hargrove?" Another beat. The audience was not breathing. "Yes," Courtney said finally. "Your Honor." She said, "Your Honor," the way someone says a word they are doing an impression of, technically correct, completely hollow. Judge Judy looked at her for one more moment, then looked back down at her file. "Good," she said quietly. "Let's begin." "Ms. Delgado," Judge Judy said, turning to the plaintiff. "Tell me why you're here." Rosa straightened in her seat. She opened her folder and looked at her notes once, just once, as if to confirm she had them, not because she needed to read them. "Your Honor," she began, and her voice was steady despite everything. "I worked for the Hargrove family for 15 years. I started when Ms. Hargrove was 9 years old. I cleaned their home in Bel Air 3 days a week. I also helped with the household management, grocery orders, the children's schedules sometimes, coordinating with other staff." "For 15 years, Judge Judy said. "Yes, Your Honor. 15 years. I never missed a day unless I was sick. I never broke anything in that house. I never stole anything from that house." Her voice tightened on that last sentence, just slightly, like a string pulled taut. "I gave that family 15 years of my life." "And what happened?" Rosa opened her folder and removed the first document, a printed copy of a text message. Her hands were steady now. She had crossed into the territory of telling the truth, and the truth has its own kind of calm. "In March of this year, I arrived at the Hargrove house as usual. It was a Monday. Ms. Hargrove, Courtney, met me at the door. She told me I was fired. She said that a diamond bracelet was missing from her bedroom and that she believed I had taken it." "Had you taken it?" "No, Your Honor. I had never touched that bracelet. I had seen it on her dresser many times. I dusted around it. I never moved it." "What did you say to Ms. Hargrove at that moment?" "I told her I had not taken anything. I told her she was welcome to search my bag, my car, my home. I had nothing to hide." Rosa paused. "She did not search anything. She just told me to leave and that she would be reporting me." "And did she?" Rosa's jaw tightened. "Yes, Your Honor. 3 days later, she posted on her social media accounts, she has over 400,000 followers, that her housekeeper had been fired for stealing a bracelet worth $8,000. She did not use my full name, but she described me. She said," Rosa read from the printout, "Hispanic woman, mid-40s, the one who's been cleaning our house since I was a kid. Apparently loyalty doesn't count for much. Fired her today. Watch who you hire, people." The audience stirred. A low, tight sound, like the collective intake of breath before a verdict. And what was the consequence of that post, Ms. Delgado? Rosa looked down at the table for just one moment. When she looked back up, her eyes were bright but dry. I lost 3 other clients, families I had also worked for years. They saw the post, or their friends saw it, and they called me to say they wouldn't need me anymore. No investigation, no questions, just goodbye. She folded her hands over the documents again. I have a daughter, Your Honor. She is 17. I am raising her alone. The money I lost, the unpaid final month from the Hargroves plus the 3 clients, is the reason I'm here. The courtroom was silent. Judge Judy looked at Rosa for a long, quiet moment. How much are you seeking? $5,000, Your Honor. $3,200 in unpaid wages. The last month Courtney told me I would be paid and then didn't. And $1,800 for the direct income I lost from the 3 clients who dropped me because of the post. Judge Judy nodded once. Then she turned. Ms. Hargrove, your response. Courtney uncrossed and recrossed her legs. She sat slightly more forward now, as if she had decided it was time to participate. I mean, the bracelet was missing, she said, with a lightness that was its own kind of violence. What was I supposed to think? It was there, then it wasn't, and she was the only one who'd been in my room. Was she the only person who had access to your room? Judge Judy asked. She was the main one. That's not what I asked. Was she the only person? Courtney shifted. I mean, there's other staff, and my friends come over sometimes. But Rosa was the one who cleaned in there. So there were in fact multiple people with access to your bedroom. I guess technically. Technically, Judge Judy repeated. She said the word in the flat, precise tone of someone filing it away for later use. And before you went on social media with 400,000 followers and told the world that your housekeeper, a woman who worked for your family for 15 years, had stolen from you, did you conduct any kind of investigation? I mean, I looked for the bracelet. And did you find it? A pause. No. But you did not find it on Ms. Delgado's person, in her bag, or in her car. I didn't do a formal search or whatever. You did not search her. No. You did not call the police. Another beat. No. You did not contact any security service, review any camera footage, or speak to any other member of the household staff before posting publicly that your housekeeper, your 15-year employee, had stolen from you. The list landed like stones, one by one, in still water. Courtney looked slightly less comfortable than she had 30 seconds ago, but she recovered quickly because people who have never truly been held accountable for anything develop a remarkable talent for recovery. I was upset, she said. It was my bracelet. I'd had it since my 18th birthday. My father gave it to me. I understand you were upset, Judge Judy said, in a tone that contained no sympathy whatsoever. What I'm asking about is whether you had any evidence at all, that this specific woman who had worked for your family for 15 years without incident was responsible for the bracelet being missing. Silence. Ms. Hargrove? I felt strongly that, I don't care what you felt, Judge Judy said flatly. I care what you knew. Those are 2 entirely different things, and in this courtroom, feelings are not evidence. Courtney's jaw tightened. The Chanel blazer seemed to tighten with it. She was the last one in that room, she said, and now the lightness was gone from her voice and something else had entered it, something harder and colder, the thing that had always lived underneath the polish. I know what I know. No, Judge Judy said. You know what you assumed, which, as you are about to discover, are not the same thing. She turned to the clerk. Gregory, let's see the plaintiff's Exhibit A. Gregory brought up the first document on the courtroom monitor, a printed employment record from the Hargrove household, signed by the family's household manager, documenting Rosa's work history, pay schedule, and the final month in question. Ms. Delgado, Judge Judy said, this is your employment record from the Hargrove household. Can you walk me through this final month? Rosa pointed to the document with a clear, steady hand. This shows my last 4 weeks of work, the 4 weeks before Courtney told me I was fired. I worked 12 days in that period. I was paid for 8 of them. The remaining 4 days, $400 each, $1,600 total, I was never paid. And the additional $1,600 you're claiming? My contract, Rosa produced a printed copy, which the Hargrove household manager signed when I first started and updated every 3 years, specifies 30 days written notice for termination or 1 month's wages in lieu of notice. I received neither notice nor the month's wages. Judge Judy examined the contract. She read it the way she read everything, quickly, completely, with the kind of focus that does not miss the fine print. "This is a valid contract," she said. She looked across at Courtney. "Ms. Hargrove, were you aware of this contract when you terminated Ms. Delgado?" Courtney was looking at the contract on the monitor with the expression of someone who has suddenly discovered a problem they didn't know existed. "I don't handle the household staff stuff," she said. My father has a manager for that." "Is your father the one who told Ms. Delgado she was fired?" "No, I did." "And were you authorized to terminate household employees?" A pause that was slightly too long. "I live there," Courtney said. "That is not a yes," Judge Judy observed. "It's my house." "It is your father's house, which you reside in. That does not automatically grant you authority over contractual employment relationships. Were you authorized, specifically, to terminate Ms. Delgado's employment?" Preston, the aide, leaned over and whispered something to Courtney. Courtney leaned away from him slightly, as if proximity to advice was itself an inconvenience. "I didn't think I needed authorization to fire someone in my own home," she said. "And there," Judge Judy said, "is the first of several things you were wrong about today." The audience responded with a low murmur that was half admiration and half the particular satisfaction of watching someone get exactly what they had coming. "Now," Judge Judy continued, "let's talk about the social media post." Gregory brought up Exhibit B on the monitor, a screenshot of Courtney's social media post, time-stamped 3 days after Rosa was terminated. It was exactly as Rosa had described, and seeing it on a large screen in a courtroom stripped it of whatever casual cruelty had felt easy to post from a phone screen in a bedroom. "Read it aloud," Judge Judy said to Courtney. Courtney looked at the post. Something crossed her face. Not guilt, not yet, but something more fleeting. The recognition that a thing which felt small when you said it can expand into something much larger when someone else reads it back to you. "It says what it says," Courtney said. "Courtney, I asked you to read it," Judge Judy said, in exactly the tone that ends arguments. Courtney read it, aloud, in the studio, with the audience listening, and the cameras recording, and Rosa sitting 4 feet away. When she finished, the silence in the room had a different quality than it had before. "You have 437,000 followers on this platform," Judge Judy said. "How many people do you estimate saw this post?" "I don't track every," Judge Judy held up a document. "According to a platform analytics report submitted with the plaintiff's evidence, which your aide's legal team did not object to during pretrial review, this post received 42,000 impressions in the first 24 hours and was shared 961 times. Courtney said nothing. 961 times, Judge Judy repeated. Ms. Delgado lost 3 clients, 3 separate families she had worked for, in some cases for years, within 10 days of this post going live. She has provided written confirmation from each of those 3 clients that they terminated her services as a direct result of this post or information they received stemming from it. Rosa produced 3 letters from her folder and slid them to Gregory, who logged them as exhibits C, D, and E. A woman, Judge Judy said, who had never stolen anything, who had worked for your family for 15 years, who had never been accused of anything, was publicly described to nearly 500,000 people as a thief based on nothing but the fact that you couldn't find a piece of jewelry. Courtney's fingers had moved to her Hermes bag on the table. She was gripping the strap, lightly, but gripping it. I was upset, she said again, but this time the words had considerably less structural support. "You mentioned that," Judge Judy said. "Now I'd like to show you something that we obtained as part of the discovery process, which I believe will make the rest of this conversation considerably more interesting." She nodded to Gregory. Gregory went to his computer. On the monitor, a thread of text messages appeared. The room did not know yet what they were about to see, but in the way that courtrooms have, that particular silence before a revelation, the held breath of an audience that can sense from tone and posture, and the way a judge pauses that something is coming, they felt it. Rosa saw the messages on the screen. She recognized the phone number in the thread immediately. Her breath went very still. Judge Judy let the room look at the screen for a moment before she began reading. "These text messages," she said, "were recovered from a backup submitted to the plaintiff's legal representative during discovery. They are dated, and this is important, one day before Courtney Hargrove posted on social media that her housekeeper had stolen her bracelet." She looked directly at Courtney. Courtney was looking at the screen. The color in her face had shifted. The first message in this thread is from a contact saved in Ms. Hargrove's phone as Jade. This individual sent the following message at 11:47 p.m. on March the 14th. Judge Judy read from the printout. "OMG Court, I found your bracelet. It was in the pocket of your blue blazer from the Met Gala thing. Must have slipped in when you wore it. Do you want me to mail it back or drop it off?" The room went very quiet. Judge Judy waited exactly 3 seconds. The response from Courtney Hargrove, sent at 11:52 p.m. on March the 14th, reads as follows: "OMG, thank God. PLOs bring it Thursday. Don't say anything to anyone for now. I already dealt with Rosa situation LOL." The sound that went through the courtroom was not loud. It was, in some ways, worse than loud. It was the sound of comprehension arriving. The specific, dense silence of an audience that has just understood something. Rosa was very still at the plaintiff's table. Stephen Park had stopped writing. Judge Judy set the printout down. She looked at Courtney Hargrove with the expression of someone who has been doing this for long enough that they are no longer surprised by what people are capable of, but who has not yet stopped being affected by it. "Ms. Hargrove," she said, "at 11:52 p.m. on March the 14th, you knew that your bracelet had been found. You knew it had never been stolen. You knew it was in the pocket of a blazer at your friend's house." She paused. "And at 10:17 a.m. on March the 15th, the following morning, you posted on social media to 437,000 followers that your housekeeper had stolen your bracelet and that people should, quote, watch who they hire." Another pause. "Is there any part of that timeline that is inaccurate?" Courtney had gone still in a way that was completely different from her earlier stillness. That had been boredom. This was something else entirely. She started. "Yes or no, Ms. Hargrove, is any part of that timeline inaccurate? I thought maybe there was still a chance that—" "You thought," Judge Judy said, and the word landed with enormous precision, "that there was still a chance that the bracelet your friend found in your blazer pocket the night before, your friend, who told you she found your bracelet in your blazer and offered to return it, had also simultaneously been stolen by your housekeeper." The silence in the room was total. "That," Judge Judy continued, "is not what you thought. What you thought is that you had already fired Rosa Delgado and that taking the post down would raise questions and that it was easier and more convenient to leave it up." She paused. "Am I wrong?" Courtney said nothing. "Am I wrong, Ms. Hargrove?" "I don't—" Courtney's voice, for the first time since she had walked into the room, was not entirely under her control. "I don't see why this has to be—" And then it happened. Maybe it was the pressure. Maybe it was the years of never being told no catching up to her all at once. Maybe it was the specific, burning humiliation of being caught. Not suspected, not questioned, but caught with a timestamp and a screenshot and no exit, in front of cameras, in front of an audience, in front of a woman whose blouse she had never once bothered to remember. Courtney Hargrove leaned forward, her hand pressed flat on the table, and in a voice that was low and sharp and absolutely certain of itself, even as everything else collapsed around it, she said, I own you, pig. The courtroom went to a different kind of silence. Not the silence of shock, not the silence of anticipation, the silence of a room that has collectively witnessed something and is waiting, very carefully, very quietly, to see what the person with the gavel does next. Gregory, at his desk, became absolutely motionless. Stephen Park's pen had stopped moving. Rosa Delgado looked straight ahead and did not blink. And Judge Judy Scheindlin sat back in her chair, very slowly, with the particular quality of stillness that belongs to people who have absolute power and know precisely when to use it. She did not flinch. She did not raise her voice. She did not perform outrage for the cameras. She looked at Courtney Hargrove the way a surgeon looks at a problem they have been waiting to address. "Mr. Bird," she said. The bailiff, who had been standing at his post to the right of the bench, stepped forward. "Please escort Ms. Hargrove out of this courtroom." Courtney's head snapped up. "Excuse me? You heard me." "You can't." "I can and I am," Judge Judy said, with zero elevation in volume. "You are in contempt of this proceeding. You have been disrespectful, you have been dishonest, and you have just addressed a sitting judge, and incidentally, another human being, with language I will not repeat and will not tolerate. Mr. Bird will show you to the hallway where you will wait. When you are ready to return and conduct yourself with the minimum standard of human decency, you are welcome to come back. Until then, you are removed." Courtney stood up. Her chair scraped back. For a moment, it seemed like she might say something else, something worse, or maybe something true. Her face was moving through several emotions at once, none of them the easy confidence she had worn when she walked in. Then she picked up her Hermes bag. She walked across the courtroom, and in the most watched 15 seconds of footage that would be replayed millions of times in the days that followed, Senator Hargrove's daughter was escorted to the door of Courtroom 9 by a bailiff, while the cameras recorded every step. The door closed behind her. Judge Judy looked at the room. "We will take a brief recess," she said, "and then we will continue." She did not look ruffled. She did not look satisfied. She looked, as she always looked, like someone doing her job. In the hallway outside Courtroom 9, Courtney stood with Preston, who was saying nothing because there was nothing to say. She was on her phone, the phone she wasn't supposed to have, and whatever she was reading, it had drained some of the remaining color from her face. Inside, during the recess, Stephen Park leaned close to Rosa and whispered something. She shook her head slowly. Her eyes were wet, but her jaw was set. "Did you know?" Stephen asked. "About the texts?" "No," Rosa said. "I didn't know until now." She looked down at her folder, at the contract, the letters from her former clients, the printout of the social media post that had cost her 3 families and 9 months of income. 15 years, she said quietly, and she knew the next morning. The recess lasted 7 minutes. When the bailiff opened the door again, Courtney walked back in. She walked differently. The sideways casualness was gone. She sat straight in her chair. She put her bag on the floor. She did not look at Rosa. Judge Judy returned to her bench. She settled her papers. She looked across the room, and she was about to speak when the door to the courtroom opened. Not the main door. The side door, which was used for witness entries. And the man who stepped through it was someone nobody in that room had expected. He was in his late 20s. Dark hair, slightly disheveled, wearing a simple button-down shirt. He walked with the expression of someone who had made a difficult decision and was committed to it regardless of what it cost him. Courtney turned, and the single word she said, the first honest word she had said since she entered the room, told the entire story. Thomas, her brother. Thomas Hargrove had not been subpoenaed. He had not been contacted by the plaintiff's legal team. He had not been notified by the show's producers. He had driven to the studio himself 40 minutes before the hearing started and asked to be admitted as a voluntary witness. He had brought a folder of his own. Judge Judy looked at him with the measured assessment of someone evaluating a new variable in a problem they thought they understood. "Mr. Hargrove," she said, "you are Courtney Hargrove's brother." "Yes, Your Honor." And you have come here voluntarily? Yes, Your Honor. Do you understand that anything you say here is sworn testimony, subject to the same standards of honesty required of any party in these proceedings? I do. Then tell me why you're here. Thomas sat down in the witness chair. He held his folder in both hands. He didn't look at Courtney. Or rather, he looked at her once, the kind of look that carries an entire conversation in a single glance, and then looked away. I want to be clear about something first, he said. I love my sister. What I'm about to say, I'm not doing this to hurt her. I'm doing this because Rosa Delgado worked in our house since I was 13 years old. She made my lunches. She found my retainer in the sofa cushions 3 separate times. When our mother was sick, 6 years ago, Rosa stayed late every single week without being asked. She just stayed. He paused. She didn't steal anything. She has never stolen anything from our family. And I can prove it, and I should have spoken up sooner, and I didn't, because I was— He pressed his lips together. Because I was hoping it would resolve itself. Which was cowardly. And I'm here now. He opened his folder and produced a document. This is a report from our home security system, a system my father had installed 3 years ago, which logs every entry and exit to every room in the house via keycard and motion sensor. I requested this report from our home security provider 9 days ago after I found out about this court date. He handed it to Gregory, who brought it to Judge Judy. She read it. Her expression did not change, but she was reading very carefully. This report, she said slowly, shows that on the day the bracelet was allegedly last seen, the Saturday 2 weeks before Rosa was terminated, Rosa Delgado did not enter Courtney Hargrove's bedroom at all. That's correct, Thomas said. She was in the house, but the keycard log shows she was in the kitchen, the living room, and the downstairs bathroom during that entire visit. She never entered Courtney's wing of the house. And who did enter Courtney's bedroom that day? Thomas was quiet for a moment. Then he said, My father's campaign aide, a man named Derek Walsh. He was there for a meeting and used the upstairs bathroom, which is adjacent to Courtney's room. The sensor log shows a motion event in Courtney's room during the window when Walsh was on the 2nd floor. The audience didn't make a sound. This information, Judge Judy said carefully, was available in your home security system. Yes. It was available the day Rosa was fired. Yes. And no one accessed it. No one looked, Thomas said. No one wanted to look. The last sentence settled into the room like something heavy being set down. Judge Judy looked at Courtney. Courtney was staring at a fixed point on the table. She was not crying, but she was absolutely still in the way that precedes crying when the body hasn't decided yet. Ms. Hargrove, Judge Judy said. Courtney looked up. You fired a woman who worked for your family for 15 years. You publicly accused her of theft to nearly 500,000 people. You knew the following morning that the bracelet had been found, and there was a security system in your home that could have exonerated Rosa Delgado within hours of the accusation, if anyone had chosen to look. Courtney's throat moved. I didn't know about the security log, she said, and it was, finally, genuinely, the truth. I didn't know it tracked room by room. That may be, Judge Judy said, but you knew about the texts. Silence. You knew the bracelet was found, you knew where it was, and you left that post up for 4 months. A single tear ran down Courtney Hargrove's face. Not for performance, for the thing that happens when you finally see yourself clearly and you do not like what you see. I was embarrassed, she said. Taking it down would have meant explaining, admitting I was wrong. My father's, there are always people watching our family. I thought if I just left it, it would fade. Instead, Judge Judy said, Rosa Delgado's career faded. Her income faded. Her reputation, that she had spent 15 years building, was what faded. While you kept your 400,000 followers and your Hermes bag and your father's last name. The courtroom was completely silent. Is there anything else you want to say to Ms. Delgado? Judge Judy asked. Courtney looked across the room for the first time since the recess. She looked at Rosa. Really looked at her. Maybe for the first time in years, maybe for the first time ever. Rosa looked back. "I'm sorry," Courtney said. And then, more quietly, with the weight of something real. "I'm so sorry, Rosa. You didn't deserve any of this." Rosa looked at her for a long moment. She did not smile. She did not nod. She just looked with the expression of a woman who has been given an apology 15 months too late and is deciding in real time what to do with it. Then she turned back to face the bench. Judge Judy looked at both of them. She picked up her pen. "It's time for my ruling." Judge Judy is not a woman who delivers her verdicts with theatrical build-up. She does not pause for effect or build to a climax with orchestrated language. She rules the way she has always ruled, directly, completely, and without apology. "The facts of this case," she said, "are as follows." She looked down at her notes, then looked up, because she didn't need them for what came next. Ms. Delgado worked for the Hargrove family for 15 years, under a valid employment contract. She was terminated without cause. The cause alleged, theft, has been thoroughly disproven by text message evidence and home security records. She was terminated without the contractual notice or payment in lieu of notice. She was then publicly defamed on a platform with over 400,000 followers, causing her direct and documented financial harm in the form of lost clients. She paused. The defendant had knowledge, the day after the post was published, that the bracelet had not been stolen. She did not remove the post. She did not contact Ms. Delgado to correct the record. She did not reach out to the clients Ms. Delgado had lost. She did nothing. For 4 months. Another pause. "In my courtroom, I am limited in the damages I can award to $5,000. I want to be very clear that this figure does not begin to capture the full damage done to Rosa Delgado, to her career, to her reputation, to her peace of mind, to her daughter's financial security, by what happened here. What I can do today is limited. What the courts of law, beyond the walls of this courtroom, may ultimately address, I cannot speak to. But what I can do, I will." She made a notation. "I award the plaintiff, Rosa Delgado, the full amount of $5,000. This covers the unpaid wages in full, and a portion, only a portion, of the income lost due to defamation. Ms. Hargrove, you will pay this amount within 30 days. Courtney nodded. Once. Quietly. "Furthermore," Judge Judy continued, "I am formally noting in the record of this proceeding that the plaintiff's Exhibits A through G, including the text messages and security report, are available for public record upon request, and that the circumstances of this case may warrant further civil action, which Ms. Delgado is entirely within her rights to pursue through the appropriate channels." She set her pen down. She looked at Courtney Hargrove for a long time. Then she said something that the audience, and everyone who would watch the video that night, and the week after, and the months after that, would quote back to each other long after the case was forgotten. "There is a specific kind of cruelty," Judge Judy said, "that does not come from hatred, it comes from indifference, from the simple failure to consider that the person standing in front of you is a person. Rosa Delgado mopped your floors, ironed your clothes, helped raise you in a house that was never her own, and gave your family 15 years of her working life. And when you decided she was inconvenient, you discarded her, not with malice, with indifference. You didn't even think about it hard enough to check whether what you were saying was true." She let that land. "That is not a legal problem, Ms. Hargrove. A legal problem I can solve. What you have is a different kind of problem. It is the problem of someone who has lived so long inside the assumption that their inconvenience matters more than another person's reality, that the thought of checking, of just looking, of just asking, never occurred to you at all." She folded her hands. Your father is a senator. His job, in theory, is to represent people, all kinds of people. People who work 3 jobs and raise their kids alone and show up every single day in houses that don't belong to them, and do it with dignity. You might want to think about that the next time you reach for your phone." She picked up her gavel. Ms. Delgado, you conducted yourself in this courtroom with more grace and composure than I see from most people. Your daughter is watching a woman fight for herself today. That matters. More than $5,000, that matters. Rosa blinked. Once. Her chin steadied. Court is adjourned. The gavel came down. Outside courtroom 9, the hallway had the specific, altered quality that spaces have after something significant has happened inside them. People moved more slowly. They spoke in lower voices. Even the production assistants, who had seen 100 cases, were quieter than usual. Rosa Delgado walked out of the courtroom and stood in the corridor for a moment, blinking in the fluorescent light. Stephen Park was beside her, still carrying the manila folder. He said something to her, the kind of thing law students say when they think they've won. And she nodded. But she was somewhere else for a moment. She was thinking about her daughter, who was 17 and studying for exams and did not know yet how the day had gone. She was thinking about the 3 families who had dropped her and whether the record would be enough to get them back. She was thinking about 15 years. Thomas Hargrove found her in the hallway. He stood in front of her without his folder, without the authority of the witness chair. Just a young man in a button-down shirt who had done the right thing 9 months too late and was carrying the weight of that. I should have come forward sooner, he said. Rosa looked at him for a moment. Yes, she said. You should have. He nodded. He reached into his pocket and produced a business card. I don't know if this helps, but my father's household manager handles all staff contracts and payment processing. If there are any delays with the payment order, please contact me directly. I will make sure it's handled. Rosa took the card. She didn't say thank you immediately. She looked at it for a moment. The embossed Senate letterhead on the card, the weight of a last name that had cost her so much, and then she put it in the pocket of her navy blouse. Thank you, Thomas, she said. And that was all. Down the hall, Courtney Hargrove sat on a bench with Preston beside her. The Hermes bag was in her lap. Her phone was in her hand, but the screen was dark. She was not texting. She was staring at the wall with the expression of someone seeing something in it that wasn't there before. She had grown up in a house where consequences were managed, deflected or absorbed or quietly handled by someone else. She had grown up understanding power as something that moved problems out of your way. And today, for the first time, she had sat in a room where the power was not hers, and the problem was her, and there had been no managing it and no deflecting it, just the bright, unforgiving light of a camera and a woman with a gavel and a folder full of text messages she had sent herself. She picked up her phone. She opened the social media app. She went to the post. The one from 9 months ago. The one with 42,000 impressions and 961 shares. She pressed delete. It didn't undo anything. She knew that. The screenshots existed. The record existed. The exhibits A through G existed in a court record that was public by law. The 3 families who had dropped Rosa existed. The 9 months of reduced income existed. All of it existed, and deleting a post did not change any of it. But she pressed delete anyway. Because sometimes the first step toward being a different person is the removal of the evidence of the person you used to be. Not to hide it, but because you can no longer stand looking at it. 3 months after the case was decided, a number of things had changed. Rosa Delgado had been contacted by 2 of the 3 families who had dropped her after Courtney's post. Both had seen coverage of the case, not from tabloids, but from a legal commentary account with 2 million subscribers that had analyzed the text message twist as one of the cleanest evidence reveals in small claims history. Both families had called to apologize and ask if she was available. She was. She was also working with a community legal clinic in her neighborhood, not as a lawyer, but as a translator and case intake volunteer, 2 mornings a week. Stephen Park had asked her if she'd be willing, and she had said yes without hesitating, because she knew what it felt like to stand in a hallway with a folder full of papers and be terrified that the truth wouldn't be enough. And she wanted to be the person who told someone else it would be. Thomas Hargrove had given a brief statement to a newspaper, not about the case directly, but about the importance of accountability within institutions. including, carefully and without naming names, within prominent families. It was the most read op-ed on that platform in the month it was published. Several people noted that he sounded like someone who might one day do something with that particular voice. Senator Marcus Hargrove's office released no comment about the case. His communications team had declined 17 interview requests in the month following the ruling. Courtney Hargrove had not returned to social media, not permanently and maybe not for reasons that were entirely about growth or remorse. But for 3 months, the account with 437,000 followers was quiet, and in that quiet, something had the chance to breathe that couldn't breathe before. Whether it would become something, whether the fall was, as Judge Judy had once said about a different case with a similar shape, what saves you, was not a question anyone could answer yet. Only Courtney could answer it. And she wasn't answering questions. She was, for the first time in her life, simply sitting with something. There is a word for what Rosa Delgado did that Tuesday morning, and it is not brave, although she was, and it is not right, although she was that too. The word is something simpler and harder and more enduring than either of those. The word is present. She showed up. With her navy blouse and her manila folder and her 9 rehearsals the night before, she showed up in a room full of cameras and a woman who had never learned the word no, and she told the truth. She told it clearly and carefully and without embellishment, because the truth, when it is the truth, does not need embellishment. It needs only to be spoken. Judge Judy Sheindlin has said in various forms over the course of a very long career that justice is not complicated, that people make it complicated because they are afraid of it, afraid of what it will reveal, afraid of what it will take, afraid of the mirror it holds up. But at its core, justice is simple. It is the honest accounting of what happened. What happened in Courtroom 9 on that Tuesday was this. A woman who had been wronged stood up. And in standing up, she reminded every person watching that standing up, even when you're afraid, even when the person across the table has a famous last name and a designer bag and 400,000 followers, is not only possible, it is required. Because dignity is not something that is given to you by the people you work for. It is not something that can be taken away by a social media post. It lives somewhere deeper than any of that. It lives in the place where you decide, no matter what happens, no matter who is watching, to tell the truth. And on a Tuesday morning in Los Angeles, Rosa Delgado walked into a room and told it. That is the whole story. Power is not what you inherit. It is what you become when no one is watching. Tags: Judge Judy, Senator's Daughter, Courtroom Drama, entitled Defendant, Justice Served, Viral Courtroom Moment, Judge Judy 2024, Defamation Case, Housekeeper Case, Judge Judy, Best Moments, Accountability, Shocking Verdict, Arrogance versus Justice, Small Claims Court Drama, Judge Judy, Famous Cases,